So welcome everyone. My name is Kerstin Albert. I'm the current chair of the European Aggregators Forum. And I'm very happy to see you all joining the fifth outreach event in a series of 5 at the moment. We will have to investigate how we're going to continue the series from the fall onwards. So keep your eyes out for more news on that. If we could go to the next slide, please. So just as a quick welcome and introduction to what we're going to do today, I want to start everyone up with a few housekeeping notes. So you should all have received the program via the reminder that was sent out yesterday, and that also provided you with the Zoom link. If you want to keep that close to you, that will maximize your participation because it essentially includes not only the schedule, but also information for all of our speakers today. Your microphones should ideally be muted so that you don't disturb anyone while we have our presentations and panels. Please feel free to use your camera. We are recording this meeting, so if you prefer not to be on camera with your face, you can also turn your camera off. And we would also ask you to turn your camera off in case you have to leave for a second or two. Next slide, please. Also, just a reminder, and for those of you who have joined previous sessions or other events from Europeana, you will know this. We want to remind you of the Europeana Inclusive Engagement Guidelines, which Adina is kindly also posting into the chat. So just, yeah, feel free to say hello in the chat, to share links. We will monitor the chat and report any questions that came up throughout the presentations to the speakers. And we would just like to ask everyone to actively listen and share kind of an open and inclusive environment with everyone. Next slide, please. The agenda for today, we will have a short introduction by colleagues from the Europeana Initiative. So the Aggregators Forum is joined by the other 2 pillars, the Foundation and the Network Association. We will then have an introduction into today's topic from the European Commission. Fulgencio San Martin is joining us today. We will have a demonstration on creating galleries with Europeana. And this will lead into the first panel where we will talk with some aggregators and colleagues from the cultural heritage sector about how they are using their own collections, but also collections from other cultural heritage institutions in a new context. We'll then have a short coffee break of 10 minutes and afterwards go into a presentation about the Twinit campaign, specifically looking at the creation of a virtual museum, which is one of the outcomes of that campaign, and presents different 3D objects from all around Europe in a new setting. And that will then lead into the second panel where we will hear from the end user side of our operations. So we'll have someone talking from a researcher's point of view, from an education point of view, and from a creative point of view about how they make use of the data that is being shared in Europeana and in other contexts online. And then we will conclude the morning session. We will have a break of 1.5 hours. Throughout that break, we will have a few presentations running. So if you want to kind of keep the Zoom meeting open, we invite you to do that. And you will have a little bit more information about the projects that are presented in the panels, as we don't really have that much time during the panels to go into all the details. And then in the afternoon, we will have a training event that is specifically looking at the DeBias project and the first outputs that this project is currently producing. Next slide, please. This is just to let you know who actually is running this event today. So I'm joined by my 2 steering group colleagues, Tom Miles and Corinne Steinschneider, and also by our colleagues from the Europeana Foundation, Henning Scholz and Susanna Malechonova, And of course, we've got the events team of Europeana running in the background for all the admin and tech stuff. So thanks very much in advance to Adina and to Tamara who are supporting us in this context. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, this is the 5th event in a series of 5. So we have started in 2022 with a very general introduction into what is aggregation, which was then followed by event dedicated to the process of data collection. The next one on data processing, and the last one was looking at data publication. So how do we get the data online? And all of these you can also find on the Pro page from Europeana, and you can revisit the recordings if you are interested and have missed one of them. Same, of course, goes for the session today, so this will be recorded and be shared afterwards. Next slide, please. And this is where we want to hear a little bit from you before we get started with the introductions. And I would ask Tamara to bring up the Menti. And if Adina, you could maybe put the Menti code into the chat so that everyone has that. And then I invite you to go to menti.com. And tell us a little bit about where you are joining us from. We had already a few messages in the chat of people saying hello, but if you could let us know just your country and maybe do that in your country's language. So don't use the English one, but do it in your own language. And then we can see how far spread the audience is today. And I hope everyone can get in. Don't be shy. And there we are. And we can see that we have already a relatively good spread from the kind of west to mid parts of Europe. We've got a few colleagues joining us from the southern parts of Europe. And it seems there is a little bit of an issue with the internet connection for this to showing up. We've got someone from Egypt. Welcome. Also a few colleagues now joining from the eastern and the northern parts of Europe. So I think we've got all different regions covered, as it looks like. That's great. Thank you very much. I think looking at the responses that we have and at the participants, we can maybe move on to the next question. And this is kind of going into the topic of today. So we are interested in when you start using or reusing cultural heritage objects, which type of objects are you actually looking for? So I'm specifically interested in, I don't know, photographs or posters or books or anything that is specific to your interests. So you should have a little text box where you can just kind of provide that again as an open response. The virtual museum making its round. 3D is popping up. Music, that looks like a good mix. statues, sites, archaeological objects, medieval images, okay. Books. That also looks like a broad representation of cultural heritage. So thank you again very much, everyone. And I think we can maybe go back to the slide deck and go into the introductory part of today's session. And this is where I will essentially be handing over to our colleagues Albert Verhaar from the Europeana Foundation, and afterwards to our colleague Sophie Tas from the Europeana Network Association to present those two other pillars of the initiative before we go back to the aggregators. And I think both Albert and Sophie, you can take over the slide and move at your own pace.
I think I can, and I will give it a try. Yeah, it does work. Good morning, everyone. So a very warm welcome on behalf of the Europeana Foundation. It's great to see so many people. My name, Albert Verhaar, and I'm the Business Operations Director at the Foundation. So to start with, as you know, part of the Europeana initiative, the Europeana Foundation is group leader of the consortium, together with 18 other partners, that run the Common European Data Space for Cultural Heritage. I think probably you will hear that more often today. And that started in September 24. So as one of the topics of today is about reuse, I would like to give you a little bit of a perspective to talk about what we mean from the Foundation also and the European Initiative about reuse. Because and that's the reason why I'm so great that we see so many people from libraries, from museums and other cultural institutes, because you're key to us. Because if we want to focus on reuse, I think it's very clear that no data means also no opportunities to reuse. What we talk about reuse, you know, is the data in 30 third-party context. As an example, downloads from Europeana.eu, or the use of the education classrooms that is available. API traffic is a very clear example of reuse of data. But it's also about activities that support the reuse of data. And here we talk about training, we talk about webinars that we provide, etc. So we work amongst, splitting screen here, yeah, is that we focus on reuse where we connect to different audiences, as I mentioned about developing training programs, data quality and aggregation, key for, you know, the increase of reuse, but also working with partnerships in other data spaces, evolving website, our APIs to track more and to be able to showcase more reuse cases. And of course, this is also around processes, customer loyalty, those kind of things are key for increasing the reuse possibilities and create more impact. So we do that around three pivots. Three pivots that we're going to develop in the coming few years. And one of them is developing the data space website, which we currently have as a landing page, into a more market space. And if you scan that QR code you see, it will lead you to the current data space landing page. And that is just the start of something that we have launched in April this year, which means that we're really gonna increase the offer in the coming years. So where it currently really is about, you know, it's about the data space, what's the context of a data space, prominent on, of course, Europeana.eu that provides 57 million of content, Europeana products like Europeana Pro and the APIs and those kind of things. The future is really about developing multiple data products, but not only developed by us, but developed in the sector. And I think that's key. So we want to expand the offer by having multiple tools available for the sector, for museums, for libraries, and also offer multiple trainings around things. So what we see is the data space as a surface to interact with people, interact with organizations, and to be able to reuse the content that we have. The second pilot is that we want to try to participate in other large initiatives, creating pipelines, for example. And I think the slide you see here is really making the connection to different data spaces as well, where we can put the data space for cultural heritage to connect, for example, to different data spaces that are already existing or to be started in the near future. And I think great examples of here is the data space for tourism, where we really connect with that kind of data which that we offer, that is available for tourism, this tourism sector, but also the media data space, for example. Language is a very important topic. But besides the data space, we also want to connect with, to really see if we can create new initiative to be able to enrich content and to be able to showcase that data in a various way. The third one is that we want to support the member states. The member states are playing a very key role also towards the CHIs. And we want to support them into the recommendations they have. There's targets also for getting more data in, 3D data, etc. And we want to be able to showcase how far they are and to encourage them, to work with you in the sector more, to create more data, make that available in different ways, and hopefully getting more funding. So this is just a screenshot that I provide you, which relates to the targets all member states in Europe have. And this is really showcasing about how far they are on 3D or how far they are on high quality of data, and comparing that all. So the example you see here is Slovenia. And what you see is that they're not so far on 3D, and their target is a little bit higher. But on high quality, delivering the high quality of data, actually, they're doing pretty good. And here I'm hoping that this stays within the 5 minutes. I'm handing over to Sophie, who is doing that same warm welcome as part of on behalf of the European Network Association. I wish you a great day, and hopefully very much inspiring. Enjoy, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Albert, for this introduction. I think Sophie just about joined us.
Morning, everyone.
Hi there, Sophie. You should be able to take over the slides if you want to and move at your own pace.
Let me attempt this. Oh, it's disabled, it says on my end.
Okay, maybe Tamara, you could just have a quick look at that.
No, I can't share, but let's not keep things up. Somebody can flip through the slides probably while I talk.
Yeah, I think Tamara has that covered. Yeah.
Great. And I love this slide because it kind of expresses in a very visually impactful way what the network association it's all about, because the association in the end is not so much about data or frameworks or spaces or whatever. It is about people who share a passion, an interest, whether that comes from a professional place or a personal conviction or orientation, that really doesn't matter. The network association is there for all who somehow have a link with or have a vivid interest in digital cultural heritage. Can we move to the next slide, please? Voila. It's, I think, an integral part of the Europeana initiative. So you don't have an initiative if you don't have people really forming the engine of the initiative. And in this case, that solid core of Europeana and its three pillars, I would say, are the almost 5,000 members of the network association. You see here a number that needs to be updated after summer, as we are indeed running to that 5K membership. Next slide, please. As I said, it's there for anyone, this association. So if you do have a professional stake in digital cultural heritage, or maybe just a personal interest, ENA is there for you. You don't have to point out any professional link with the sector. We are equally as happy if you are somehow dazzled by the digital collections that we offer through the data space, or if you are a storyteller, a curator, a creative brain, anything of the sort, who is interested in playing an active role in our community, because of course that's also nice for the network if we have people who are willing to step up and to take on some of the tasks that we as a network association are performing on. And look, the main thing you have to do is complete a registration form. I would say that this is of importance, since this registration form helps us get a view of what it is precisely that attracts you to become a member of the network association, and what are potentially the skills, the expertise, the background that you have that you could invest as some sort of a collective capital in what we do with these 5,000 people altogether. Next slide, please. This is what it looks like, our sign-up page. We will make sure, and I think Adina already did so, that we share with you that one-stop shop, that one click that will take you straight to the registration page. We don't require a lot of data from you at this stage. We just like to know what's your motivation and where do your basic skills or points of interest lie. Now, on the next slide, indeed, we dive into the why, because, okay, for the network association, I think it's quite clear where the value proposition of a wide and a skilled membership lies, but why should you want to join? Well, I think that the communities that we harbor within the association are an important part of our value proposition. So what happens in the communities is that you'll find even more and even more focused, like-minded cultural heritage enthusiasts like yourself. And quite a few of these communities are tuned to or are interested in use and reuse scenarios, which of course is one of your key themes today. Well, you'll see that a couple of our 7 current communities really formed around reuse scenarios. Why is that important? Because within a community, you really exchange use cases, best practices. You can investigate new trends or phenomena that emerge within your field of interest. And you will find also some guidelines, some services, some tools, some pointers to things that might really come in practical if you're also professionally active in one of the 7 domains. Let's take a look at them on the next slide, please. Voila. So I would say that especially of these 7 communities, the communicators, the education, in a way also the copyright and definitely the research communities are very much communities that emerged out of heavy reuse areas. We see the research community, of course, using the data and the collections in Europeana for their often historical research. And we see this area grow, especially with the emergence of the data space, with a higher diversification of data types. We believe that we have a large potential for growth and for growing reuse in the research community. Same goes for the educators. This is one of our most vibrant, active, and productive communities. They come up with exciting events, with interesting formats for interaction. They come up with very concrete applications of using Europeana collections for educational purposes all the time. And it's really exciting to see this community grow and to see its outcomes enjoying a wider uptake, thereby even expanding the ecosystem beyond what we currently regard as the Europeana initiative. Next slide, please. Okay, apart from the joining a community, of course, there are ample opportunities to collaborate with other network members in different ways. So what we often see is that people are interested in networking, in finding complementary expertise, in maybe finding the perfect partner to join project proposals in the realm of digital cultural heritage. And this is definitely something to which being a member of the Network Association could be a gateway. Through collaborations, through joining communities, through taking up this active role, as I mentioned earlier, you will really be able to have your voice heard within the sector, have an influence on policies, regulations, on trends that we address through the Network Association. And if you really like and you are prone to stepping it up in whatever capacity that might be possible for you, you can take on a leadership role as well. So the Network Association is headed by a members' council, currently consisting of 36 people, and a management board consisting of 6. And the way to these governing bodies is, so to speak, wide open for you. If you like to sit back and see what happens in the sector rather than taking on that active role, no problem. You can be a participant in events without necessarily conducting one yourself or organizing one yourself. These events are most often of a capacity building nature, so we offer very targeted training for whatever role you might want to take on in your organization. We're also building out currently a learning platform that contains resources to take you above and beyond such training events. And then finally, there's also the option to just stay informed. So as a member of the Network Association, you simply know that you're always a front runner when it comes to digital trends in cultural heritage. Next slide, please. This is something I wanted to point you to, especially with a view to reuse scenarios. It's our pilot on country groups that is currently running across the Europeana initiative. So not only the network, it's a joint effort with the aggregators as well as the foundation. And what we're trying to do here is to bring different key stakeholders from specific member states together to champion the data space and to make sure that all the stakeholders, all local, regional, and national stakeholders within the member states are well aware of all the value that the data space has to offer. And again, reuse scenarios are an important part of this. Currently, the pilot runs in 3 countries. So we have Italy, Slovenia, and Bulgaria. And the interesting thing is that we see these pilots taking on their own dynamics and their own direction. In Italy, we see that our aggregators and our association members that are involved really putting their money on advocacy and policy work, while in Slovenia it's the networking that has set off quite strongly in this early pilot period, while in Bulgaria there's a focus on capacity building and influencing national strategies for digital cultural heritage. So this too could be a movement, let's say, yeah, an initiative in which you might be particularly interested to join. I think maybe this would be my final slide. Can you flip one further, please? Indeed, it's our call to action to scan the QR code, to maybe later serve to pro and fill in that registration form. We would absolutely love to have you. There's even much more room than 5,000 in this network. So go and check it out. See if you see your interests reflected in the value proposition and join for free. We look forward to meeting you again. That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Sophie, for this introduction. And I can only support the last point of joining the Network Association. I think specifically in the current context of us moving to the data space for cultural heritage, there are a lot of new possibilities and extended possibilities to explore together. What I wanted to do, and I'm just going to check if I can take over control of the slides, is to just give a brief introduction in terms of how the aggregators look at the reuse topic that we are currently talking about. And I wanted to start us off with just kind of a brief overview of what the aggregator forum actually is. We currently have 43 accredited aggregators in our little community, and that consists of national aggregators on the one hand and domain and thematic aggregators on the other hand. So we've got kind of the national and the international level covered in complementation to each other. When we are looking at reuse, I think the first thing that we need to say is aggregators are essentially also reusers. We are gathering data from multiple sources. We are presenting them in a new context. Most of us are enriching the data to some extent, for example, with references to international vocabularies to support discovery or to kind of create linked open data approaches. We might be running initiatives where we extend the data, so creating translations or transcriptions, depending on the data that we have, subtitles for editing audiovisual. We might have something to create annotations. And this is something that we will hear more of later on, we also, of course, use the data that we gather in a creative way by creating galleries, online exhibitions, using them in blog posts, and a lot of other things. Aggregators are also supporting reuse, and I just wanted to mention two main frameworks in which we are doing that in the context of the data space. And the first one is the Europeana licensing framework, and I think that's probably the core point when we talk about reuse, because the licensing framework, which gives us a common language to talk about copyright and licensing, allows you to know what you can use in which context. So I think that's the basic for reuse, so that we all are clear about what we can do with the data that we see. And the other part of this is the Europeana publishing framework, and this is where we are looking at the quality of the data that is being shared, and that has two strands. The first one is the content, so the digital images that are provided on Europeana.eu. And of course, we would want them to be in an as high resolution as possible, so that you can do most of the things with it and don't have to kind of work with a crappy little image that you can't really kind of show on a bigger poster. And of course, the license should be as open as possible. And then the second strand in this is the metadata. So we're looking at metadata that really supports discoverability, because if we can't find things, then we can't reuse things. And that starts with simple things like making sure that the titles are really kind of speaking to a user, that there's a description there that tells the user a little bit about what is this object about. But then also kind of looking into including entities like persons or places or subjects to provide slightly different access points into the data than just a simple keyword search. And then as a last point, aggregators are also fostering reuse. And this is where capacity building and other events come in, which we do in close collaboration with the foundation and the network. You can just see two more recent examples on this slide here, the Europeana Tech Conference last year and the Digital Storytelling Festival just a month ago. But there's also a lot happening in the aggregators' own networks. And I invite everyone to also look at the Learn With Us page on Pro if you are interested in finding out what is on the agenda next. And with this, my part is finished. Thank you again, Albert and Sophie, for your presentations, and I will hand over to Fulgencio for the introduction from the European Commission side of things. And I think I'll need to apologize because I just stopped the sharing completely instead of just handing it back. So Tamara, if you could bring the slide deck up again, please, that would be great. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Kerstin. No problem. This should work. Okay. So good morning. First of all, I would like to say that we have been 40 aggregators for some time, and for some years, and now we are 43. So I'd like to welcome the three new, Catalónica, Bon Dia, Eslovaquiana, Dobre Rano, and Euskariana, Egunon. So my name is Fulgencio San Martin. I'm a policy officer at the European Commission and responsible for the data space for cultural heritage. And I'm in the unit of Digital for Culture and Education and Interactive Technologies, such as virtual worlds. So for this very short speaking point that I'm doing this morning, I thought of not talking again about the policy. You all know about the digital decade, the recommendation, the targets. Actually, some of them have been already presented by Albert. I am assuming that you have all heard about it. Instead, I wanted to concentrate in two horizontal aspects, facilitators, if you prefer, for which you aggregators are key and that are directly related to reuse. Both are common to 3D, to virtual worlds, and to every single digital object in the data space. The first, you have it on the screen, is language diversity. This is mostly addressed to national aggregators. Thematic aggregators, please stay tuned because I will have something for you as well. So the thing is that we often assume that reuse is enough in English. That may be the case for example, for APIs, for programming, but that is really too much assuming. I must say that I learned English only at the university when I was 19. I am that old because at the time there was no internet, no Windows. So, and I was studying programming, so a computer science degree. So I'm that old, really. The thing is that we assume that every user can understand English, like every one of us here, but that is not the case. And actually, they must understand English because all our information that we are sharing for reuse is in English. The metadata, the name of the metadata, the API information, all that is all in English. There's hardly anything in other languages other than English. That is, in my opinion, far too restrictive. So we must think in doing something else. Now, you aggregators are the key on expanding this because you are the experts on your own languages. You are the experts also on the cultural heritage narratives in your member states. And also you are the gates, our gates, for enhancing language diversity and reuse in the data space and from the data space. For example, you may invite users and cultural heritage institutions in your zone, in your language, to enrich objects or static web pages like APIs. You may also enrich objects in other languages that may be useful for completing your narratives of your own, and perhaps providing translation of the information of the APIs and so on. So with hackathons, with agreements with translation schools, with universities, etc. Language do not guarantee reuse, they are enablers, facilitators. But not only from the point of view of our targets, the reusers in the member states, but on the other side, you are also the champions in the reuse of your own objects in your own language. And here, this is also valid for thematic aggregators. So please show us how you share your objects in your own narrative, in your own way, with your own stories, because that is very useful and will provide the other aggregators with information, with useful information, and perhaps with new ways of sharing those objects. Please show us the innovative ways in which that can be shown. That is for the language diversity, for the multilingualism. This is the other aspect in which I think it can be improved for improving reuse. Now, since I came to the commission to connect, it was 5 years ago. All my presentations, and it's been done a lot, believe me, all my presentations, be it for Europeana, for the data space, or for my other projects, so the 4CH, the Competence Center, the e-archiving, etc., the policy, etc., all my presentations have had only images from the data space from Europeana, only. I have never used any other image of whatever. So I invite you to do the same. But the thing is, even when using this, there may be some hiccups, some problems. Last year I created a gallery, so I took advantage of the new feature of Europeana, which is to create your user and to create your own galleries. I did one, and 1 month later I found out that all images, or almost all images, were gone, were unpublished. So they were not anymore there, no titles, no images, no nothing, no metadata, nothing. And that was a disaster, because I really love my gallery. Some images were lost. They were coming from a non-maintained dataset, which wasn't published. That was terrible. So I did create yet another gallery. Actually, it was the same one, but I added more images, and this is the one. And this capture is from earlier this week. And as you can see, there is already one which is unpublished. And this was this very same week. So we are on Thursday, and I submitted the image. I think the limit was on Tuesday. So it was 2 days ago. So there is already one, this rosewood, this pink one in the middle, which is already gone. We must make it easy for users to do their thing. A lost reuse is bad. So one image, I don't care. I will remove it this today, probably. So that is bad. But a lost reuser is a disaster, because a lost reuser will not spread the word. They will speak badly of Europeana and the data space. And I know it's not easy to maintain all collections by all CHIs, particularly if the content stays with the museums and the galleries and the archives, as they should be. But at least identifiers will help tracking them. Now, nothing is more ephemeral than a web page or an image in internet. But that is internet. We are talking here about the data space, and the data space should not have ephemeral images. They should be safely preserved, and for that we will need identifiers. Actually, persistent identifiers. aggregators, either thematic or national aggregators, decentralized or not, we will come to decentralized aggregation later in today, need to champion that as well. We will need reuse, we will need reusers. And for that, with identifiers, it will be easier to follow up the trace of images and other objects. So the colleagues at the foundation, they are gathering information from CHIs and also from you, from aggregators, for a future data space policy about persistent identifiers. The link is there. It is also in Europeana Pro. Please go and answer this survey because it's very important. So I invite you to please participate and to please spread the link among your cultural heritage institutions that are affiliated or that are submitting information through you. Perhaps you could even help the foundation to translate this policy, this survey, because it would be really useful to reach to every single cultural heritage institution. We need persistent identifiers. That is really everything that I wanted or needed to say. I would like to invite you to keep in mind these two aspects when doing or facilitating reuse. So on the one side, language diversity, on the other, persistent identifiers. I don't think that we have enough time for questions, but I will be happy to stay for half an hour, let's say, for answering questions in the chat. Thank you.
That's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. I think that would be great. So if anyone has any questions to Florencio, please use the chat and ask away. And thank you, Florencio, for this last point. I think Adina also put the link in the chat so that everyone can access the policy, and I can only emphasize how important it is that we get a broad enough feedback on how we want to do this in the data space. So yeah, I invite everyone to have a look at the policy and then answer the survey that was set up to provide feedback for it. And with this, we are gonna go into the more hands-on part, so to say, of today's event. And I will be handing over to my colleague, Tom Miles, from the British Library and the aggregator Europeana Sounds, to tell us a little bit more about how you can create galleries. So what Florencio just mentioned, Tom will now demonstrate. Tom, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Kirsten. And thank you, Fulgentios, for telling us about your gallery and how important it is for the data that's on Europeana to be maintained, because once if there's a broken link, then it is going to sort of disappear from people's galleries, and that's the sort of important part of reuse. You look behind me. I've been reusing a medieval image, and that's sort of kept me going through lockdown Zoom meetings, and it's reuse is quite a loose word, really, because you can, in some ways it's sort of turning something into a commercial product, but often it is just a way of organizing material in a different way. So there are things that can be in copyright that can be reused. So I'm going to go and show you the galleries that are on Europeana at the moment. Now, if I can share my screen, I will do that, and hopefully everybody can see what I'm doing there. Yes, I can see that it's working. Right. So these are galleries that Europeana have curated, and one example has been really important, that it's where you can see the Twinit gallery, and that is all the 3D images that the member states have worked very hard to create of an important landmark or an important object from their country. But then there are others. You can see dance, dolls made of wood. This is one that I really liked. I just spotted that this morning. Mansplaining in art. So have a look at that. See if it's see if they're actually mansplaining, if in your opinion. This is and suffragettes. Obviously, we've got lots of elections going. So these are really important to just sort of gather together material that you find on Europeana. Somebody said once, it's often looking at Europeana is like looking for something in an attic, and you suddenly get distracted by something really interesting that you've already found, which is actually really important. And this is why I think the galleries can really help people in their use of Europeana. So, for example, I will go to my profile, and you can see here that I've there are various tabs. One is for likes, and that is simply ones that you can like. If you have a profile, and I think Adina is going to be adding instructions in the chat how to set up a profile, so I won't go into it here. Once you have your profile, you can see images, and I can hover over, remove the like. But the other thing I can do is I can either create a new gallery, or I can decide that I'm going to add that particular picture to one of the galleries that I've created. So I can see that it's already in bagpipes, so I don't need to add it there. But here we can have a look at public galleries. So you might have seen on the Menti that I'm quite interested in musical instruments, and some of the galleries that I've put together, there's one on pluriarchs. So if you click on pluriarchs, you can see this very distinctive musical instrument, and it's from South Africa, and each string has its own string bearer. That's what's so distinctive about it. And not only have we got images, I've been able to put together recordings as well. So it just shows that these images could be in copyright, the music could be in copyright. It may even be that the audio is not actually playable on Europeana. But if you're a lecturer or a teacher, you can still organize these recordings and images, put them in a gallery, and then it's really easy for you to present those to your students. You're not going to sort of having to set up a spreadsheet and paste in a whole load of URLs. So let's go back to the galleries. Can go back. And I'll start with a private gallery, say one that I'm not doing, one that I'm not, I don't want to be shared yet. And we're going to create a gallery, and I've run out of ideas to create galleries. So please, could you put into the chat, if you would like a particular theme, just put it in the chat, and we'll see if we can find, we'll see if we can put it in on Europeana. Because if we can't do it now, then when can we do it? So anybody put midsummer. Nice one, Maria. Summer solstice. Ballet dancers. How about ballet dancers at summer solstice? Right. Okay. How about let's go to Europeana, see if we can find something about summer solstice. That's a good one because it's today or tomorrow. Okay. Oh, Game of Thrones, like the idea. I'll do that one later one day. So, which one are we going to put? A lot of them seem to be recordings. Maybe we can filter it down so that we don't have recordings at this point. We just have images. Only 59. Okay. So modern druids at Stonehenge. Oh, before I do this, I actually need to create a gallery. So here we are, create new gallery, and I'm going to call it Summer Solstice. And I'm just going to call it the time of year where the day is, where daylight lasts the longest. Okay, not the best definition, but and I'm keeping it private for now. Let's create the gallery. So I'm going to add that one to summer solstice, and Cupola summer solstice from the German documentation center. Let's add that also to summer solstice. Okay. 16, yes. It's 16 and a half hours of daylight in London today. I know in Finland, where several of you are, it's going to be all day long for some parts. So sunset behind the Paps of Jura. Let's add that one. And let's add just a few more so you can just sort of see. Right. Oh, well, this looks megalithic solar door. I think we'll add that, and then we'll say we're done for that for now. So, I will now go back to my profile and look at my private galleries, and you can see I've got 4 items in the summer for summer solstice. I can move them around, so I can shift the order. So I can say I decide I'll move that one to second place or first place. It's also making suggestions underneath others that I could add to the gallery. And I could say, right, well, I'm happy with that. So I will now edit that. I will remove the private gallery and I'll update it and go back to my public galleries, and summer solstice is there. So, oh, sorry, 0 hours of sun in Luxembourg today. Right. Okay. So, so that's a sort of useful. I think it's a useful feature and a good way of organizing material that you're finding, getting it somewhere, just making a note of it so that you can't you often sort of find that I've found something on Europeana, it's highly relevant, but unfortunately, I've forgotten how I did the search to find it again. Right. That is the end of my demonstration, and it is now time for me to move on to the panel discussion that I'm going to be giving, and I'm joined by three of my colleagues in the world of aggregation, and we have Christina, Valentina, and Marco. Marco should be here.
Yes, here I am.
Hello. So right, I will quickly introduce everybody. We're going to be talking more about reuse, and we've been thinking about what is reuse, whether it's you know, how do we measure reuse? What's the impact? How do we sort of broaden the impact of reuse? So I shall introduce Valentina Bacci from Photo Consortium. She's the project manager for the participation of Photo Consortium Association and its members. And next we have Marco Rendina, and he is the managing director of the European Fashion Heritage Association, and he's also been working on the 5D project. And Marco was chair of the Europeana aggregators from 2018 to 21. So one of our predecessors, but still very much involved in the advisory board at Europeana. And last but not least, Christina Rose from the German Film Institute and Film Museum. Christina is also involved in the Constellation 2.0 project, which is something that she'll probably be mentioning in our discussion. Okay, so I am going to start off the process by saying that my first question is, how does reuse differ from use? And I'll start off with Marco with this one. So how does reuse differ from use?
Yeah, it seems just a semantic kind of things, but actually, I think when we talk about reuse, especially in the context of digital fashion content, I think that the two terms significantly diverges. Use, let's say, involve employing the digital asset such as 3D model or a virtual garment for its primary intended application. For example, publishing them on digital platforms like Europeana, for example, or use them in a blog post or an article. While reuse, I think, refers to repurposing these digital assets in new and innovative ways. So there should be some creative process in the middle. For example, within the 5D culture projects, we did a pilot which was called Virtual Fitting Room. By the way, I think I can post here in the chat the link to it. You can enjoy it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And this is now has been this application is on a virtual mirror in the Central Museum in Utrecht exhibition, which is called Mod Chapeau. And in this case, historical hats are digitized and made available for virtual try-ons, allowing users to engage with these artifacts in an interactive manner. We did a similar thing with the social VR platform that we developed. that allows for the display and interaction with 3D digitized costumes in a virtual environment, creative, immersive experiences. So in this case, reusing digital content is not only a way to preserve them, but also to introduce them to new audiences. And I think this approach exemplifies how digital fashion can be reimagined and utilized across various platforms and contexts. So I think that this is the main difference between using just a digital object or reusing it. But I'm curious to hear also the other panelists. Take on this.
Thank you, Marco. And I went to try on, and I didn't know if I was going to be seen wearing a 16th century hat. But that's what.
Yeah, unfortunately not. We are thinking about actually there is the possibility to develop these filters in Microsoft Teams. So we were thinking about producing this sort of filters in Teams so that you can join meetings wearing your favorite historical hats. It would be nice.
It would
Nice
match
idea.
your background.
Yes. So Christina, how do you feel reuse differs from use?
Yes, actually, I agree with Marco. I think the real difference here is that an institution might digitize their collection with the purpose of maybe publishing it on their own website, or as Marco said, giving it to Europeana. But I think in a lot of cases, it's some sort of grander digitization scheme. So they don't focus on one specific object, but maybe digitize a whole collection or part of their collections. Whereas in reuse, the focus then is not on the institution that holds the objects, but on people and other institutions worldwide, actually, that then can either use it in an artistic context or in a curatorial context, etc. Which, of course, also means letting go away of the control you have over the objects, because in reuse, of course, you can specify what can be done with the objects, but you can't specify every possible idea people might have. And for example, in the Constellation 2.0 project, we were, so to say, heavy reusers of content, because the idea in the Constellation 2.0 project is that we have our exhibition space here on location in Frankfurt, but no matter how big you make your exhibition space, you can never fit in everything in your exhibition. There will always be objects that are not on display, that are not in your institution, etc. So what we have done now, together with the Acme in Melbourne, Australia, is that you can do in Frankfurt what they can do in Melbourne already, is that you collect objects in exhibition space via a small feature. For us, it's with the ticket. They have a sort of small paper plate. And then when you have seen all these tangible objects, the analog things, you go into the digital sphere, where we have curated sort of pathways or storylines that connect this object you have just seen with objects in our archive storage, or with objects from institutions from Europe. In this case, because we reused contents from Europeana. We have, for special thematic storylines, we have searched, okay, what do other institutions have? What do they publish? What do they hold in their collections? And how can we connect this to what we have in our exhibition?
Thank you. I mean, what you were saying about the curation, the sort of overspill, using galleries as kind of overflow, because when you're curating an exhibition, you're filtering and having to sort of actually discount some fascinating material that there just isn't space to deal with. So galleries can be a way of saying, right, well, here's the exhibition, but have a look at these. There's even more. So Valentina, what's your definition of use and reuse? So
yeah, I think I fully agree with Marco and Cristina, but I would like to add to this conversation about 2 points. One is the fact that I think we all agree that reuse of a digital resource is somehow linked to a creative effort by the reusers. So we include the resource as such or re-elaborated in an editorial, in a piece of research, an exhibition, a learning or e-learning material. This, however, links to the most important issue that we all know about the lawful reuse and the importance of correct rights labeling and correct interpretation of these rights labels which are attached to the resource that is published. In this slide, we all know that already since a long time, Europeana is really driving and leading this effort on attaching correct rights labels to the object so that a person, whoever he is or she is, that stumbles upon the object know what they can do and cannot do with that. So certainly we all know, and we are moving in the right direction, that reuse as well as use is connected to correct rights labeling. And the second point that I would like to highlight is about the 3D digitization. We heard before from Albert that there is this, collective effort of the European member states, according to the recommendation of the European Commission, to produce and share 3D models. However, a 3D model of an object, of a monument, of a site is not only a mere graphic reconstruction of the external features of the object. It is something that goes much deeper than that and which needs to be complemented by accurate and wide information about the object. So in this light, 3D digitization helps not only the reuse of the object in other contexts, but also helps the use, particularly the professional use of the object. For example, a conservator who is analyzing a 3D model of a monument would also need to understand, for example, the status of the materials or the evolution of the surfaces and changes due to environmental impacts, and so on and so forth. So indeed, there is this importance of accompanying these 3D models that we are all trying to foster and to produce, to accompany with an holistic documentation of the object that is reproduced in the 3D model. In this light, there was an effort by the European Commission some years ago to create a study. It is the VGA 2020-654 study on the quality of 3D digitization of tangible cultural heritage, which stresses the importance of high quality and of holistic and accompanying documentation, also known as paradata. And you know that Photo Consortium is currently coordinating a project, Eureka 3D, that is based on this study and which wants to help cultural heritage institutions to really perform high quality digitization and well-documented 3D objects.
So, so it's actually when you have a 3D object, it's actually having a whole link of related material that connects up with that in so many different levels. So for a building, are there architectural plans, diagrams of the original original design? Yeah, So I think that brings me to the next question, which is the data selection and preparation different when you have reuse as an objective? And I'm going to ask start with Christina on that one. So, you know, if you're thinking about reuse, do you have to have a different approach to the way you present the data?
Yes, I think so. So in this Constellation project, we, as I said, we were really on the reuser side. We did some digitizations on site for our own collections as well, but we really wanted to see, okay, what can we use of the really plethora of objects that is already there. And I have to say, as a data coordinator, I'm usually on the other side of things, and I'm also part of the data quality committee. And sometimes all these talks about how to structure things and what is a controlled vocabulary, etc., can be a bit arduous. But now I have to say, because we installed our backend of the platform, or the web experience we built. We installed a content management system that directly docks onto the Europeana APIs. So it really makes use of this data space marketplace that was just presented before. And then, of course, people can go to Europeana, and actually this matches quite well because they can create a gallery there and then import this whole gallery into the backend of Constellation. So you can really, via the API, make use of the objects you found in Europeana. But of course, on the first end, we had to train our people. Okay, how do you research in Europeana? How do you find the content that's reusable? Which of course needs all these right statements. And thankfully, it is made quite easy for the people researching on Europeana with these "Can I use this" filter, where you can click on yes and yes with conditions, etc. So that was really good. And then in the backend, of course, we had to do all the mappings, and then all these, so to say, theoretical talks about data quality really come to life when you're sitting on the other side and have to think about all possible cases of data combinations and forms of people's names that might come in, and how you write then the conditions on what goes where. Yeah. So, and that's, of course, super enlightening for your own future projects, where you're, again, more on the data provider side. Yeah, which is, of course, something you know beforehand, but if you experience it really firsthand on the other side, it's super helpful. But yeah, you get a different look. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say it's sort of not. It's kind of imagining what people might be looking for, or if they're thinking of reusing, or if you can think of some kind of scenario where something will be reused, you've got to kind of add more than what's already there in order to sort of hook people in and be able to sort of herd that information over. Yes. So Valentina, what do you think?
Yes, I agree that the data preparation and deciding what data to share is really linked and influenced by the requirement and the expected reuse. I made before the example of a professional use of a 3D model, a conservator, or a chemical engineer or an architect who really wants to dig into the status of a monument. Well, 3D models really help with that, but this means that these are really gigantic files, and it is really difficult to share them on a normal internet-based connection. So instead, if you want to just visit this 3D model, or to include it in less complex reuse scenarios, XR experiences, video games, stuff like that, maybe you don't need such a detailed and gigantic file. And that's why in Europeana, it is possible to share 3D object by embedding a viewer that allows a user to really interact with the model, but which does not require the model to be a gigantic file. So certainly, this is something that it is coming in the world of 3D, but also happened before, when we were all involved in 2D digitization, and particularly Photo Consortium is the accredited aggregator for heritage photography. So if you need to use an image in a printed publication or in a blow up for a photographic exhibition, you really need high quality files because you want the printed result to be, you know, very well done. Think about a blow up of a meter size. It really needs, the file really needs to be high quality to produce a nice result. Instead, if you want to share an image on an online platform, on a, I don't know, a blog, or maybe for other less professional, let's say, reuse, to include the resource in a, I don't know, student's assignment, well, then the tier 2 of Europeana, which means 1200 pixel size, is already okay. So certainly data preparation and sharing depends on the expected reuse of the object. And back to the 3D issue of very gigantic files, there is this working group of the data space that is really working on expanding the Europeana data model, so to accommodate not only a selection of the relevant paradata for 3D object, but also to accommodate links to raw files or to higher quality files that cannot, of course, be hosted in the data space or not in Europeana, certainly, but which may be made available by the content provider by other means.
Right. Thank you. Marco, data preparation.
Yeah, I think a lot of has been said already, especially by Valentina in the first question, when she talked longly about data preparation in a way. So I think that indeed data selection and especially preparation can be different when reuse is the objective. When focusing on reuse, data must be well curated, especially ensuring high quality, so that digital asset that can easily repurposed across various contexts. For instance, in the case of digital fashion content, it has to be to be created with detailed metadata. And here I want to refer also to the point of Fulgenzio about multilinguality, for example, but also standardized formats, especially for 3D content. So all the paradata thing that Valentina was also mentioning, high resolution quality, all these things can facilitate the seamless integration into different platforms, especially when we talk about augmented reality and virtual reality environments. This process, I think, is often demand-driven, indeed, responding to the needs of curators or educators or users who seek innovative ways to interact with digital fashion or cultural fashion heritage in general. As the demand for engaging digital experience grows, the preparation and selection of data for reuse become crucial in meeting this expectation and maximizing the exploitation of digital assets. So I really think that data preparation, which is the work on which us aggregators are very much involved, is quite crucial, because without the things we mentioned, so proper metadata, eventually in multilingual format, high quality content, it would be very difficult to reuse, or anyway, reuse will be hindered by the lack of information and the lack of quality good enough to be reused in specific contexts like augmented reality or virtual reality environments.
Yeah. Thank you. And by the way, anybody has any questions, please do pop a question into the chat. we'll be able to answer it hopefully before we break for coffee. Now, the last question is about how you track reuse, because what we really want as aggregators to see is, you know, when we add content to Europeana, how is it actually being used, and who's using it? Where are they putting it? Is it being used in lectures? Is it being used in augmented reality? What? So Valentina, could you tell us a bit about how or whether you track reuse, if it's either used on Photo Consortium or Europeana?
Yes, yeah. We know already that to track reuse is difficult, especially for online resources, because when you put your collection or your images online, and people can really access it and download it and reuse it lawfully, hopefully, in their own materials, you really don't know where these images end. And this for some categories of content providers is really a concern, because even if we all advocate for as much open access as possible, it is also understandable that the content provider would like to know what happens with their online content. And this is difficult to track. I am aware, I'm not a specialist with this, but I am aware that there is research in this field from the JPEG committee, for example, or other important organizations about blockchain technologies and other forms of, embedding sort of tracking in the digital files. But to my knowledge, this is something that is still has to come. So to track reuse is difficult unless you are directly involved with the reuse activity. So in the case of Photo Consortium, for example, we have done initiatives where we engage directly with the reusers. In some cases, for example, students, exhibition curators. We are working a lot to create new materials in Historiana, that is this online platform that makes available education resources for educational reuse by teachers and students. And there we are collaborating with the Historiana colleagues, Historiana ambassadors, who are a network of teachers who are really looking at our collections and the proposed e-learning activities that we created, and tell us their feedback about the collection itself, about the way that it is presented, and so on and so forth. So I believe that there is possibility in the future to really track what happens to the digital files once you share them online. But at the moment, I believe that the only way to really understand how the resource is reused is to talk with the people who reuse it.
Yes, true. And find out. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move to Marco, and I'm going to put a bit of a spin to this question. So not only how do you track reuse, but how would you like to track reuse?
I think indeed that tracking reuse, Valentina was right. Of course, it's complicated, but I think is very essential to understanding the impact and value of our digital assets. So I think despite it's a difficult thing to do, it's something we should invest time in. And I think also the data space should become better in this, because I think now I can admit this, we are not very good in tracking reuse on the European platform itself. So and tracking it outside it is even more difficult. At EFA we are trying to do this, like Valentina was mentioning, working directly, let's say, with reusers. So having them in close contact, this is easier, of course, to do. We are also working with Euroclio. We did some workshop for their teachers, history teachers, on how to use fashion heritage content in their lessons, in their curricula. And we work also with a few universities, design university, fashion studies universities, in digital curation courses, and so we work directly with students that are going to reuse our digital content in their work. In the 5D Culture project, we are also gathering analytics, monitoring how our digital fashion content is utilized in different reuse scenarios that I was mentioning before, the application we have developed. And this includes metrics on user engagement, for example, interaction rates, but also user satisfaction. This is relatively, I mean, it's easier to do, let's say, I think. And gathering feedback and maintaining this open channel with your audience, with your users, ensure that the digital content meets the evolving needs of and expectation of our audience. So I think that this is quite important. You were asking how I would like to see this tracking of reuse. Well, I think that on one side, which is less technical but more as a policy, we should ask more often to our users, our reusers, what they like in our content, what they don't like, and what they would like to see in the metadata that we share, for example, in the quality of the content that we share, in the metadata. So I think that this user loop is quite important. User feedback is quite important. On a technological side, of course, I'm dreaming about this blockchain infrastructure that allows you to automatically track a reuse on the internet at large, wherever platforms are involved. Some of our content partners we have we have more than 50 partners across Europe. Some of those are photo agencies, fashion photo agencies, and they are quite interested, I would say, in tracking reuse because they sell these images usually. The only low-tech, easy way to do that is not the top for user experience, is adding a non-invasive watermark on the images that we collect, just to know when this image will re-pop up in some Instagram feed or somewhere, and this happens all the time. At least the photographers can track back and understand who is reusing and how is reusing these images. So I think that having something which is not invasive but can help you tracking reuse would be a great addition. Like Valentina was saying, there are already experiments in this, but we are not really there. There are companies that are offering these kind of services so they can monitor. They end up being basically copyright trolls most of the time. We have been contacted by some of those in the past. But I think that when technologically we'll be ready for this, it will be a great, of course, a great moment, not so much for enforcing copyright. In some cases, this is important, but more in understanding where and how heritage content has been reused. In the meantime, I think that engaging with our audience and putting them always in the loop when it comes to desiderata on how they would like to see the content be shared, I think this is something we can do, is affordable to do, and we should do, basically.
Yeah, and maybe if I can add on copyright, Marco, it is true that a lot of heritage material is or should be labeled as public domain. However, it is possible that more recent material is indeed covered by copyright.
80% of our content is in copyright,
yeah,
indeed.
Exactly. The fact that the copyright exists doesn't mean that the object can't be reused. I mean, it is about understanding what are the rules of reuse. So I believe that we should not be, against copyright as such or scared of copyrighted material. The fact that copyright exists is normal, is the law. But I think what we really, and we aggregators can do that, what we really should advocate for is the fact that you should label correctly the material and that the users should be educated. This
Exactly.
is work in progress, educated to really understand what they can do.
This is,
And
yeah,
the fact that,
you're right,
the fact
Valentina.
that an item is in copyright doesn't mean that it can be reused. It means that if you want to reuse it, you have to contact the copyright holder and discuss with them.
Yeah,
Yes.
this
So
is
it's not a big
this is
issue
basically
after all.
the 80% of our lesson when we do this work with students in the digital curation domain. Basically, we find ourselves in front of people that are genuinely naive regarding this issue. So it's not that they want to avoid copyright or IPR. Simply they don't know that they should take care of this.
Yes.
So they just
Yeah, I
reuse
fully
content
agree.
without quoting the source, without anything. So
Yes.
it's a matter of some mindset. So what we are trying to do, and this is also part of the work of aggregators on capacity building, is try to educate a bit the audiences, our audiences, on this. Yeah, I agree.
And on Europeana, it'll say, you know, seek permission. Not necessarily you can use this. Maybe you can use this. No, well, if you want to use this, you have to seek permission. That doesn't mean you can't use it. You just have to ask. So finally, Christina, I would also ask, if you don't track reuse, how would you like to track reuse?
Yeah, that's true. We don't really track reuse, but coming back to the point that was raised earlier today with the persistent identifiers, to maybe give reuse a little bit of a different perspective, because we have been talking about artistic and curatorial reuse. There's also reuse in research, and there using persistent identifiers could maybe be a good way of seeing at least where, okay, this work that I've published has been cited there and there and there. So I think apart from really technological perspectives like blockchain or something, maybe there's a already established way in research that could be reused, so to say, by the cultural heritage domain to see in research, in papers, etc., to track better. Okay, I as an institution, as a cultural heritage institution, have opened my collection for people, which includes researchers, and they have done their research based on what I have offered them.
Right. I think this is, you know, I think this idea is actually, you know, you find more data, you could put more data in that helps the reuser, helps provide you with more information, and it can be more of a two-way process. Now we are on track. Before I sort of tell everybody what happens next, I want to say thank you so much to Christina and Valentina and Marco for tackling those questions. Very much appreciated. And I think food for thought in the next you know, months and couple of years as well. So, well, we have reached the end of the panel discussion, and I will hand back to Kirsten because she will tell us what's happening next. Thank you very much.
So I'm just going to hand over to Henning Scholz from the Europeana Foundation to present us with the virtual museum.
Yes, thank you. We have heard about 3D today already, and I think the name TwinIt was also mentioned a couple of times. Before going into the museum and showing also an example of how 3D content can be used and reused, I'm going to give a quick introduction. Oh, there are more slides coming before it. A quick introduction to to what TwinIt actually is and was. TwinIt was a campaign that we were running over the last year that was put out a call to EU member states for creating a pan-European collection of 3D digitized heritage assets. And it's probably for the first time that we really went really broad, trying to get from every EU member state at least one 3D item. Sometimes you got several. And we've done this to also directly support the goals of the European Commission recommendation from 2021 on a common European data space for cultural heritage. We've done this also supporting member states in their efforts to do 3D digitization and creating also awareness and a shared understanding of the opportunities and the benefits of 3D can bring. Basically building also capacity and more knowledge around what it means to work with 3D. And at the end, contributed to an increase of the amount of high quality, usable and accessible 3D content in the data space. And what usable and accessible then means, we can see on our TwinIt gallery that Tom mentioned earlier, and where you can access all of the 3D models that from all of the EU member states that were submitted over the last couple of months, and celebrated about a month ago in Brussels at a high-level event to celebrate the completion of this campaign. And in this gallery, you can access 3D models in a, I would say, still in the traditional way. You can access them through a viewer. You can interact with them, walk around in castles like this, and this is one way, of course, to interact and work with 3D. But now I can't. Now it works. But there are different ways, more ways to do this, and we thought about a virtual museum to show you around monuments and other 3D assets from museums around Europe. And today I was hoping I could already give you a fully fledged sneak preview in this virtual museum that will all go online in a couple of days. But as the developers are still putting some final touches to it, I have a couple of screenshots to give you an impression on how this will look like. So when you enter the foyer of the museum, we'll see a couple of areas where you can see monuments and other 3D objects in that exhibition and that museum. It's actually really a virtual museum, a virtual building. And in the left corner, you see pieces of religious heritage from several member states. If you then move around, and you can see the opening, the whole of the museum, which I think is a nice capture of how museum buildings can look like, maybe even in itself a piece of heritage. And in the other corner, there are another series of 3D models on exhibition. Moving on to the next area, there are castles and caves and other underground constructions to explore. And on the opposite side, there are 3D models that are linked to women. And I will look in some of them in a minute a bit more closely, so you have an idea of what they are. Moving on, there are pieces of connected to knowledge transfer, National Library of Ljubljana and the Globe, for example. And then the sixth corner is rounding this exhibition off. And if you're turning around again, and let's walk back a bit. You can not only see those 3D models on a post, but you can really go there and interact with them in a virtual way, like we've seen this castle from Croatia before. And if you kind of open the door to the castle, you can actually go into it and walk around in the context of that museum. On the other side of the whole of the museum, you see in the middle something that doesn't look very spectacular from the distance, but if you go closer and really open the pixels of Zamora that is exposed there, you can do something you can't do in the museum in Spain where it's hosted. You can go there. You can actually open the box. You can turn it around. You can look into it and explore all the details you want to see, and close it again, which is something. Yeah, I guess you really want to do this with the actual object, but that's not possible. So doing it in 3D in a virtual way is still a very good way of exploring this, which is now available for really everyone in the world, and you can do this with those 3D models. And yeah, this was like celebrated about a month ago, where this virtual museum was premiered at this high-level event in Brussels, where the models were also presented in a more detailed way. Created a lot of noise also on social media, and we hope that the virtual exhibition we are opening in a couple of days, that will also give access to this virtual museum to everyone, to all of you, will create an equal amount of buzz around Europe, and maybe will start also be seen as an inspiration what we can do with 3D models, and not only lead to more use and reuse, but then also hopefully to more 3D models coming into the data space to allow more of those things to happen in the future. And with this, I would close this small intervention and invite Corinne and her, I think it was 3 panelists to stage to really hear from the users of cultural heritage, how they experience this, and how they make digital cultural heritage an expression of their own. Corinne, can you please take over?
Thanks a lot, Henning. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Corinne Stenschneider, and I'm working for the Michael Culture Association, which manages Museu, the aggregator for museums and museum collection in Europeana. So I have the pleasure of moderating this panel, Turning Digital Cultural Heritage into Personal Expression. The aim of this panel is to share reuse experience with you by giving the floor to 3 professionals from 3 different sectors, the research sector, the education, and the creative sectors. And all of them have reused data from Europeana in different projects. So same principle as for the first panel, a discussion punctuated with a series of questions, and then after you will be free to ask everything you want to our 3 great panelists. I will just first introduce each of them. So 3 wonderful women. Eva Meyer is a senior researcher at the University of Continuing Education in Camps in Austria, and her research interests center around the visualization of cultural collections. And together with her colleague, Florian Windegger, she coordinated in the last 3 years the Horizon 2020 project in Tavia. And she will tell us more about it. It is a collaborative research. And a knowledge base has been created with links, biographical informations of cultural actors with cultural objects from Wikidata and Europeana. More coming very soon. Cosmina, Catherine Alberta, so for the past 8 years, she has been creating art collage using images from Europeana and from the Deutsche Digital Bibliothek, blending elements of the past with some contemporary artistic motif. And she will tell us more about what she's done and how she used the Europeana. Renata Tomaka-Pasternak. Renata is the very active director of the secondary school of Jarosław in Poland, with whom I've had the great pleasure to work in a European project. In this school, a class is dedicated to those who are particularly interested in arts. And students from this class took part in the Crowd School project, an Erasmus Plus project, and she will tell us more about it in a second. So welcome to the three of you. And so the first question for all of you is tell us more about your use case. So why did you choose to use Europeana to find your example? So first, I will give the floor to Eva.
So thank you very much for the invitation. So our research project had the idea to bring objects back into context with other cultural information. And in our case, that was people that are connected to cultural objects. So we took the life stories of actors, of European actors, and wanted to connect them to cultural heritage objects that are related to them because they did produce them or because they owned them at some point of their life or whatever. And that was the starting point where we said, okay, what kind of databases can we use to start? And we used different biographical databases on the one side, and for the cultural objects, we were instead in the first place saying we want to go with Europeana because we have got European actors. But actually we had some problems to get to the data. So we worked with Wikidata instead in the first place. But at the end of the project, we also managed to get in data from Europeana. So we used about 230,000 objects from Europeana to link them to these different cultural actors from across Europe.
Great, thanks a lot. Cosmina, if you can tell us more about why you choose to use Europeana?
Yeah, thank you, Corinne. Some maybe 8-9 years ago, I first subscribed to the newsletter of Europeana, and I started getting their blog information. And I was really intrigued by the pictures they were using in their blogs and the information about the pictures. It was really very interesting to me. And so I started looking for images in Europeana that way. And I was thinking, I have to use these images. I have to show them to the people. They're so interesting. Then they deserve a new life. They deserve to be pulled into the present. So I started making collages, like a mixture from the past and the present. And presently, my pictures are in 2 galleries in Frankfurt with quite a bit of success. And I'm working for the Deutsche Digital Bibliothek, but here I'm in private capacity. But they were also exposed in a big event that the Deutsche Digital Bibliothek organized, which was the DDB Forum in 2018. So it brings me a lot of joy to use the images, and from Europeana, I use mainly images and present them to my audience.
Thank you, Cosmina. Renata, what about you? Your school is very engaged in innovative approaches in education. So why Europeana?
Thank you, Corinne. And thank you for a very warm welcome. So as you told our partners, our friends, that yes, my school is taken part in several years in different projects, but it started the adventure with Europeana in 2017. We have had some project dedicated to our gifted students from Ministry of Education in Poland. And actually we wanted to write something about a quite unique person known in our part in Poland. And our students started to searching the data, the information, and somehow by our partners from Toruń, from the Association of AMCA, they've told us, well, there is one and excellent example that you can find some information in Europeana. So we started, thanks to them. Yeah, and somehow it started, you know, as I said, our very, we can say, precisely beautiful, you know, way and to find these data and then others. And somehow we started to cooperate with different partners, as you know, Corinne, with you, PUG and so on, to start on a crowd school project as well. So thanks to this digital library, yeah, we could find a lot of information. We could start it and conduct the projects which were dedicated to us.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, indeed. And we are several aggregators in this project with fashion also, Museu, and also a partner from the MTUA. So yeah. So we see that you have different connections with European, and this is very interesting to see how in your different professional life you can use and reuse the data based on Europeana. So then my question will be about the data. So what type of data, I mean metadata and content, are you specifically looking for? And do you have any preferences? And feel free to say everything you want to say, the good thing and the questions. And so please, Eva, if you want to begin.
So as we did a very automated approach and did link the data from the persons to the objects automatically, we first looked at the metadata. So what we searched for in the whole Europeana dataset that was available for us was person identifiers that were there. So that was the first starting point for us, where we looked for the object that could be of interest. But of course, we didn't end there. So we also have a front end for the for interested researchers and cultural heritage practitioners to work with this knowledge graph. And when you go there and want to inspect the objects there, we take all the information we can get. So we also take the pictures from Europeana, we take the other metadata so that we can give that information also to the interested researchers. What we found as a restriction for use is that you have got people linked mainly on the constructor side, so that you find the painter of as a person identifier in the metadata, but you wouldn't find, for example, the person painted on the painting as a person identifier. So you wouldn't be able to also link the data, this kind of object to that person then, because we did this kind of harvesting approach that we have. But in the end, we take everything that we can get from Europeana, all the metadata that is available. You're muted. Corinne, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Sorry. Yes, Cosmina, what about you? About the data you used?
I actually usually do not know what I'm looking for in Europeana, so I will just start my walk in Europeana and I would browse. At the weekend in the evening, I would spend some of my evenings just browsing through Europeana and listening to music. And I get inspiration when I find something. I usually look for images, and I use the facets to filter my search by license. So then I find the images that I can use, reuse, and this way I started making my collections, my galleries, and I have my favorites. Some institutions, from big institutions like the Museum for Arts and Crafts in Hamburg or Gallica, to smaller museums. There's everything I want, actually, but it takes a lot of time to find some images, but I find it very meditative to browse through Europeana. By that I mean I need a lot of patience, which I have, because this is my my passion. So it's fun.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And so Renata, for you, it's a little bit different, and because it's very precise what you were looking for. So if you can explain to us.
Exactly. So as I mentioned in the first question, we have taken part in Crowd School project. That was our first Erasmus Plus project, and my students, we can say that our class is quite unique, because in Poland there are only 5 departments like mine, which is architecture and landscape. And that's why we wanted, to talking about the project, to tell to present as more as we can. So that's why we used Europeana for this landscape architecture points, talking about this educational offer, which of course you have. So thanks to that platform, we could use it, really plenty of objects, and we could use that in our campaigns. And of course, in the connection with another schools, but we were needed that for the project, Crowd School project.
Yeah, yes, I remember you were. I mean, look, you created galleries first, and then the students were able to annotate this using the Broad Heritage platform, and we developed it together for specific educational purpose. So
exactly.
a very precise research oriented.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, so now the question about is it easy? Was it easy to find what you need? Time consuming, maybe. So maybe you have some suggestions, feedback that could help us to improve the discoverability in Europeana. Eva?
Yeah. So as I said in the beginning, we had some problems. So it took us 2.5 years to get the Europeana data into our knowledge graph. So it was really, it was challenging. So what would be really helpful for this kind of reuse of Europeana data is to have an up-to-date Sparkle endpoint, so that you would be able to really send in data requests and update the data on a regular basis, so that you would get the newest data also more frequently into our knowledge graph. And also, for example, we have got open pipelines, so we could re-ingest other databases, and that would be really helpful if we want to link those to Europeana projects as well. So to have a good endpoint, a good Sparkle endpoint, or also REST APIs for person identifiers that can be used so that you can automatically retrieve that kind of data for such research purposes. But I think it's the same if you think about AI, so that you would be able to really search for such identifiers that you have. And also it's really important that you have got this kind of person identifiers more frequently in the data, but not only person identifiers. So in our front end, we are able to visualize biographical events on a very detailed level, so that if you have got structured information, we can show you on a timeline every event of a given person or multiple persons. We could do the same for objects, but for objects, we don't have data on that level in a structured way. So that would be great if the data would also be structured there for events, so we could visualize them, show the trajectories of an object, where it moved, where it was exhibited. So that would be really interesting.
Okay, so we take notes. But we see before this morning that the question of the personal identifier is really so important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really also important for us to have the tech support of Europeana. So we have been in contact in the end, and they were really helpful. So we managed to link the objects in the end.
Thanks, thanks to them. Cosmina, some suggestions for improvements?
Yeah, well, this will answer probably Rosita's question as well that was posted in the chat. So as I said, I'm not searching in Europeana, I'm finding stuff in Europeana. What would make my finding process easier would be, for example, the search result list. At the moment, it's grouped probably by data delivery. So data delivery is showed in a block in the search result group. So in that way, I have like maybe 10 pages of coins that I do not want at the moment, at that particular moment. So maybe if the search result list would be, we'd have some sorting possibilities by relevance, for example, or it would be more the object in the search result list would be in randomized, so to speak, so mixed. So not 10 pages of plans, but some mixed content. That would make my searching process a lot easier. And I think it would be more interesting and not as adventurous as now, because I want to jump ahead 10 pages, but I'm afraid I missed some content that maybe I would be interested in.
Yeah, and yes, and maybe less time consuming.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Good point.
Because I know that the search is only so successful as the metadata is, and working for the Deutsche Digitalbibliothek, I really understand this. It's not easy to do that. But as I said, I'm happy to browse through Europeana, but this way the browsing would be more pleasant, I think.
Okay, but thanks for all those suggestions, because we will be able now to work on it and increase the all for you and for the reuse. Renata?
Yes, I do agree with Cosmina and Eva. It's of course time consuming while I, was watching on my students, and maybe shortly I will tell you about the crowd school. My students are multiculti, so they speak English, German, Spanish, some of them French. But when they wanted to find some information, they said, well, there is a lack of Polish language. So that's why, talking about crowd school, we put I'm sorry for the sound, because it's a bell in my school. So we wanted to put another language, and let's focus on maybe the problems, not time consuming, but it depends, because this library it's incredible huge. Let's say about 60 million of items. I have checked that, talking about the Europeana. And when we wanted to find some information, when we put the proper query, let's say password craft, we found almost 60,000 of results. And then they were searching, which I mean my students, yes, they were searching. Then, from the galleries, museums, and so on. And, the information which were depicts crafts, Yes, generally. Then the same, I asked them, so let's look for Polish word secession in Polish, secesja, which I found 15,000. But when we gave them another password, which was just a second, Art Nouveau, we found almost 24,000. So we put more job for us to look for it. So it must be precisely, yes, given the password, the query, and yeah, we could find it. So talking about me, teacher from Poland, yes, I would say that it would be nice to have, you know, all the description in another language as well. Talking about that Polish one.
Yes, fully agree. And sometimes in some projects, such as this one, but other projects, we have the opportunity to work also on vocabularies. And this is very useful because then, thanks to this project, for example, we were able to develop the vocabularies in some specific topics, the sports, the Art Nouveau, etc. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. You wanted to say something?
Yes, thank you. There's the Europeana Creative Residency taking place right now, and I am mentoring 2 collage art students, and we were talking about the search in Europeana, and they said that like Tamara said, Renata said that looking for making a search in a certain language and will bring a few results, making a search in another language would bring more results. So that maybe could be addressed, and then some support for the search, like interesting searches, because we found some amazing objects just running some out-of-the-box searches that we wouldn't use normally for the collage art, like neural networks, and that we found some amazing images that were very artistic for us, and we were able to use them in collage. So maybe like some help somewhere, or a blog somewhere with very interesting searches that bring unexpected results. That I think that would be very interesting for you.
You mean some tips, some tips guiding, supporting you in the search, just
yes.
like don't forget to look for this kind, or okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's tips from Europeana for professional searches and using the API and everything. But I mean, examples of like wild searches, with terms, just concrete example with terms that people would not think, maybe not everybody would think about that.
Very good suggestions. Yeah. Yes. Thanks a lot. Yes. Okay. So now let's go to the last question. So the question, would you consider offering the result of your reuse back to the data providers for others to continue building upon? Eva, again, sorry, so you first.
So as we had a Horizon project, we also developed everything in an open way. So all the tools, all the pipelines that we developed are openly available. So yes, it can be reused. You will find everything on GitHub linked on our website. If you go to the results and tools, you will find everything linked there. And yeah, we are happy if they are reused, and if someone builds upon them and thinks about how we can widen our view of cultural heritage by recontextualizing objects, also with information on important actors, but also maybe other kinds of information like exhibition catalogs. There's so much information out there that could be linked, and can build a much, more densely connected knowledge base of cultural heritage, of European cultural heritage. I think that's the way to go.
Okay, great. Cosmina?
Well, I would be very happy to, of course. I do not really know if the direct data providers are aware that their objects are being used in this way by me, by others. So yeah, I would be very happy indeed.
Yeah, to exchange, to tell
Yeah.
them how it's linked to the, you know, the question also about tracking the
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And it's really important, and we see
Yeah.
all your examples that it's
yeah,
it's very important to track this, to valorize this, and so then to create links. So maybe
exactly, like closing the loop and maybe opening another loop.
Yes,
for
sure.
other people to use or get inspired by the process.
Yes. Renata?
Yes, of course, we are still continue. We are working on Europeana, thanks to Europeana, because at this moment I have another project in my school, which is Crowd School, Sunrise project, and its connection with art, generally, building urban architecture and so on. So the same, we use that because my students they knew it, how to do it. And of course, we are considered, and the same as Cosmina and Eva said, we have a different exhibition, the digital ones, and of course in our school. So talking about my students, quite tricky ones, so they take, you know, the information quite briefly from the platform. So of course, yes, we will use it, that's for sure. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot to the three of you for those three really inspiring example of very concrete reuse, and hopefully you will continue to reuse
for sure.
Very positive. And thanks for all the suggestions you just made about how to improve. And it's really very important, these discussions with you, and in order to maximize the reuse of the data. And yes, as Adina put on the chat, you can access other example of reuse on Europeana Pro. And I would like to open the floor to all the participants. If you have some questions, I'm just checking in the chat. Tom, you have a question? Oh, it was a comment.
It was an idle comment, and then I tried it, but I was just sort of thinking how we make more use of the Wikidata entries, which of course will go across the different languages that are on Europeana, and how can we get things to sort of link together more, so that when people use those Wikidata links, then it means that you can browse around in the way that you might browse around on Wikipedia. So I just sort of thought I'd try it. It just came into my head, and I was just thinking about that from the browsing experience.
I know that our colleagues from Finland, they did use the Wikidata identifiers for this interlinking, so the person identifiers, but I'm not sure whether they didn't use the Wikidata identifiers from the biographical databases to retrieve the EAF identifiers and then use the EAF identifiers to get the data from Europeana. So I think it was this kind of chain, and I think the Wikidata identifiers couldn't be used. But I think it's worth linking, because Wikidata is such a great knowledge base to use. And so in the end, we did use both Wikidata and Europeana, and there you would also have complementary objects that you would get for the people. And that's really good to also widen our view, or also include those in Europeana maybe, no?
Absolutely. Thank you.
I don't know if someone has a question. I don't see any question. No. Okay, so thanks to all of you. It was really a great pleasure to discuss with you, and And now I will give the floor to Christine for the conclusion. So thanks again.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed to all three of our speakers and also to Corinne for chairing this panel. I think it was really nice to see how things come together from the different perspectives that we had presented in the presentations and in the different channels that we had today. What we wanted to do in terms of the conclusions is to maybe turn things around, and I'm just gonna ask Tamara to directly go into the Menti actually. And I'm going to post the link from earlier again, and we're also going to post the code so that you can connect, because essentially we would want to ask you what you are taking away from this session today. So is there anything that inspired you to try new things? Is there anything that you learn new and are interested in following up? So you should have a possibility to kind of just add a general comment in this Menti. So I'm interested to seeing what people have thought and if there's anything that you're going to try out later on. So just giving that a little bit of time to see who is brave enough to put something in the... There's one thing, yeah, not all types of reuse need high quality data, but high quality data is important. Yeah, that's very, very true. I think that's also something that we are exploring in the context of the data space in terms of the different reuse scenarios that we could think about and what that means for the quality of data that we need, because there might be different levels, so to say, of data quality depending on what we want to do. Explore more what there is in Europeana. That's always good, specifically as we always are adding new content there. Follow up on some of the resources shared. Yeah, that's a good point. Using AI to improve searches. Yeah, definitely. There are a few who were inspired by Tom's presentation to create their own galleries. That's great. Sparkle has obviously also been picked up, data reuse in new ways. Fostering CHIs, so cultural heritage institutions, to provide more data quality and content. Yeah, I think that's also something where we still need a lot of kind of hands on deck, so to say, to get everyone to the same level. So yeah, digital transformation, as we all know, is not an end point, but a journey that continues. The point about open licenses, yeah, that's an important one. So the more open we can make things, the more reuse we can foster. And picking up on fostering, having more honest internal discussions. I'm not sure I can read the whole comment. Just probably need to wait until things might scroll up a little bit. There's also a question in the chat just popping up about items that become inaccessible. Yes, actually, we do have an internal process where these are flagged and where we are trying to kind of get in contact with the providing institutions to solve that. It is kind of a process that has separate steps, several steps, so it might not always as immediate as we would want it to be, but it definitely is something that we are regularly looking out for to make sure that the number of items that become inaccessible remains as small as possible. Yeah, I think there are a good few things on here. Thank you very much to everyone who responded. A reuser festival, just seeing that as a last comment for collecting ideas. That sounds interesting. So that might be something that we can look at maybe in the context of the next Europeana Network Association conference. Just picking up again on Rosita's follow-up question, maybe Adina, you could kind of put a link into the chat about the feedback form. So on europeana.eu, depending on where you are, you will have a specific feedback pop-up, I think, in the bottom right corner, where you essentially kind of can report, for example, a link that isn't working anymore. And that doing that from the page where you found it will also allow the colleagues at Europeana Foundation to more directly identify where the issue is. So that should always be possible. Yes, indeed. And thanks very much, Adina, for that link. Okay, I think we are coming to an end of this morning session. So that gives me the possibility to thank all the speakers once more. I think we had some really interesting and exciting conversations today. So lots of things to explore more for us all together. We will have, during the lunch break, a session of presentations that some of the panelists have prepared. So if you want to kind of leave the Zoom meeting open and get a little bit more of information about the different projects that our panelists are currently involved in, we invite you to do that. Of course, we will also share all of this at the end on our events pages, so you can also watch that later on. But if you still have a little bit of time, please just stay around. And then just as a reminder, because that also is something new this time, we have kind of an extended afternoon session from the DBIAS project, which is one of the 4 current supporting projects to the data space. And we will have a training session on the outputs of that project as they are available for now. So that starts at 2 p.m. Will be roughly 2 hours. So everyone who has signed up for that separately, we will ask you to kind of make sure that you are in the same Zoom link again around 5 minutes to 2 Central European time, that is. So thank you very much again, everyone, and we hope we'll see you soon.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Valentina from Photo Consortium, and I am happy to tell you something about our work to promote teaching and learning with photographic heritage. Photo Consortium is the accredited aggregator of Europeana for photographic heritage. And besides aggregating collections, we are committed to the promotion of photographic and cultural heritage collections in general that are available in Europeana. We also embrace Europeana's open access approach and strategy for fostering reuse of these collections in various domains, including cultural tourism and education. Some examples of our activities in this area include engaging real-life students with Europeana and the Gallery Builder tool, publishing editorials in Europeana to tell stories about different themes, offering curated collections and e-learning activities in Historiana, the dedicated platform to share resources for teachers and students. And finally, we have our educational portal to promote these activities and all the initiatives in the domain of digital cultural heritage and education. Work with real students took place in the course on territorial politics for tourism and cultural management at the master degree by Fondazione Campus, University of Pisa. Europeana and the Gallery Builder tool were included as a student's activity in the course, inviting students to realize group works and presentations on various themes and histories linked to the local territories and their tangible, intangible heritage by searching and reusing collections sourced from Europeana. Europeana collections are so rich that allow to tell stories about a big variety of topics, addressing students and culture lovers. The use of the Gallery Builder and the publication of blogs on Europeana are a good way to do this storytelling. And besides photographic collections, there is a wealth of different records type in Europeana to enrich these editorials. As partner of Historiana, Photo Consortium hosts a space presenting a selection of curated source collections about different and varied topics, including, but not limiting to, photographic heritage. A proposal of short yet compelling e-learning activities, also in different languages, presents ideas and suggestions of reuse for photographic content to engage students with historical themes or with creative activities. You are all welcome to visit our space in the Historiana platform. The birth of photography dates back to 1839, the moment when the first photographic process, the daguerreotype, was invented. Since then, historical photographs not only witness past events of history, but offer a view on how life was. Collections of heritage photos, like this one you see in the screenshot, help students understand the context of history and relate to the society of the time. Examples of e-learning activities, also in different languages, are made available for teachers to reuse as such, to take inspiration from, or to fully customize according to their needs. The proposed e-learning activities that we published in Historiana either present specific themes or invite students to get creative with photographic collections. For example, in these e-learning activities dedicated to portraits, a nice selection of very peculiar heritage photographs is offered for students to invent their caption, what the people represented in the pictures may have thought or may think or may do in their lives, and also mix with family photos from their family albums in a sort of interactive way of connecting heritage photographs and personal photographs. Finally, I would like to point you to our educational portal, It is a dedicated website realized by Photo Consortium to present and promote educational initiatives, projects and events which leverage digital cultural collections to support teaching and learning. I am happy to receive your news and to publish them in this online portal. Thank you very much for your attention, and please don't hesitate to reach for me. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cosmina Catina Alberta, and I have been making art collages with images from Europeana and the Deutsche Digitale Bibliothek for about 8 years now, and I still find a lot of inspiration there. As a collage artist, I believe cultural heritage images have immensely potential and can successfully be reused in art because they offer a wealth of inspiration and have so much storytelling potential. My art concept is collage art, since I think it's a powerful medium and it can tell a story from various perspectives, especially a cultural and historical context. I believe that using images from museums in art enriches them by adding historical, cultural, and also emotional depth. It also demonstrates an admiration for and engagement with cultural heritage and adds educational value to art. And also my favorite part is that it tells a story. Collage art has many meanings and they are conveyed in different ways. For me, collage art means a representation of ideas. I always thought that collage can establish very fast a relationship between the viewer and the artwork using a certain ideally relatable story and also using visual metaphors or symbols. The collage images I find in Europeana, I collage them with my own artwork like drawings, patterns, or photos that I take myself. Placing museum and archive images in new contexts allows viewers to see these in a new light, as they foster a fresh understanding and appreciation. I like to use this recontextualization to challenge traditional narratives and offer new perspectives or depth to the images. This way, the new image gets a whole new meaning because of the anchoring of the old image into the present and letting them tell a story from the past. This past-present happening at the same time I find fascinating myself. It is like the time is fluid and the past and the present are influencing each other in both directions simultaneously. Like in this picture. It can add new texture, making the work aesthetically rich, and also create a contrast and symbolize various abstract concepts as emotions, energy, or the passage of time. Usually my work with collages involves a process of deconstruction, which is breaking down images into fragments. In a symbolic way, this generally means breaking down of initial perspectives or even norms, social norms, and questioning established viewpoints. And there is the construction or reassembly act of piecing together fragments from different contexts. Through reconstruction, I create new meanings, compositions, and I use symbolic representations. So for my collages, creating them using images from museums and archives from Europeana or the Deutsche Digitale Bibliothek, this brings them a unique blend of authority and authenticity. When I start telling people about the picture and how I found it, where I found it, I see their faces lighten up. They resonate to the images, they resonate to their strength, to their significant story and their truthfulness. Collage can collapse time and space, bringing together elements from different eras and locations. And I do that in my work. By merging the past with the present, I hope my work can provoke thought by offering new ways to interpret and experience them. Here I was inspired by the story of Michel Fokine, which was a famous ballet choreographer from the 30s. He was a pioneer in his art field, and finding this image and using it in my work motivated me to learn more about him. I found his story, the story of his life, so motivating and so touching. The way he reinterpreted music and tried to implement new techniques and perspectives. This impressed me so much and inspired me so much. It helped me create a narrative that offered a more holistic view and an opportunity to find out more about the amazing person depicted in this image. I do not search in Europeana, I find my images in Europeana. I usually only start my search for images, and I use a license that allows me to use the images freely, and I start my walk on the Europeana Boulevard. It can be a long walk, but for me it is worth it every time. I really wish I would be able to browse through more than 42 pages in one walk. Sometimes I had to get in touch with the institution to clear the way I was allowed to use their images. The search process for these images takes time, but I find it great since every time I find and I learn something new. It encourages me to explore, and I discover hidden gems that immediately spark ideas to me. As soon as I see an image, I have the collage made up in my mind, and I know this is the image I was looking for right now. Even if at the beginning of my search, I really did not know what exactly I was looking for. I thank you for your attention, and I wish you joy, inspiration, and a lot of fun with Europeana and the Deutsche Digitale Bibliothek.
Yeah, you pick up the cue for this one.
I'm also
So you have
walking
to
in my